Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's another WTA preview and prediction video, and we're going to be going over the WTA China Open in Beijing. It's a Masters 1000 tournament, and it's going to be the first Masters 1000 tournament of this Asian swing, and a very interesting one as well because there are some notable omissions, which we'll get to in a second. There's also the potential of a US Open final rematch, and as always on the WTA Tour, the lineup is stacked. The qualifiers have been confirmed as well, so we can go through that, which is always exciting because sometimes we have to do these before qualifying's ended. But in this case, we've been able to do it after, which is great because the qualifiers should not be slept on. Before we do get into it, though, remember to that like button, do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. We appreciate each and every one of you, especially our members. You guys are legends, and you know why as well. Okay, let's get into this then. So, Sabalenka is the top seed and Pegula is the second seed. So some glaring omissions, of course. There's no Iga Swiatek. There's no Ons Jabeur, who cut her season short. There's no Elena Rybakina. There was some fake news coming out about her putting a post on Instagram, but she now has officially pulled out of this tournament due to a back injury. We're hoping we will see her back, but there's no guarantee of that. That's for sure. So definitely a big miss there as well. And we've still got Coco Gauff and Pegula and a couple of really, really good players. And not just a couple, a lot of really good players. So there's still a very strong roster on show, but definitely, of course, some big omissions for sure. So let's get into this then. So we've got Sabalenka as the top seed, and she has a bye in this tournament. And look, I mean, she's coming off the highs of the US Open win, of course, and she's playing some really, really good tennis right now. But the question is, how is she going to play for the rest of the year now? Can she carry that form through, or will she potentially have an accompanying low with the high that she's just had at the US Open? That's always interesting to see with players who've just come off winning a slam. Then we've got Zarina Diaz, who's qualifier versus another qualifier in Qinwen Zheng. And look, I mean, I think Diaz should get through this one. In my opinion, she played some really good tennis, beat Heather Watson really convincingly in qualifying as well. And I like her game. I saw her play at Wimbledon qualifying, and I did think that she had a very solid game. And I think she'll do pretty well at this tournament. Wang and Kruger is another first round matchup. That's Wang Yafan and Ashlyn Kruger. I think Kruger should get through that one, though Wang will have, of course, the crowd behind her. And it'll be interesting to see if she's able to utilize that. It's always intriguing because when players play at home, sometimes, well, it can work one of two ways, right? The first way it could potentially go is that they really use the crowd to their advantage, and it helps them get pumped up, and it fuels them to play at a really good level. Or potentially they could be overawed by the occasion, by the pressure, by the fact that the crowd is behind them, and almost it can be debilitating at times. So it's always interesting to see which way it goes. There's also the third option, to be fair, which is where it doesn't really affect them at all, and they're so focused on what's in front of them, the play on the other side of the net, their own game. They completely block out the outside factors. And there are a couple of players that have mentioned that in the past, and that's always been interesting to hear. Lulu Sun is, look at that, she's seeded, great to see, 29th seed. She has a bye, as does Keys. And then we've got Sriras Tormo, the qualifier versus Gao Jinyu, a wild card. I'm going to go for Tormo to get through that. And then we've got Gabriela Russa versus Wei Sijia, who's a wild card. We're going to go for Rus. Haddad Mayer and Samsonova both had buys, and of course, Haddad Mayer, a really, really good tournament for her just a few days ago now at the Korea Open, beating Kasatkina in the final, if I'm not mistaken, and a really good win in Korea for her there. Then Buxa and Yao. We're going to go for Buxa. And you know what? I'm going to go for Yao, actually, for this one. I'm going to go for Yao. Rodionova qualified versus Kochiretto. No Kochiretto. Mertens and Wan Yu both have buys. Interesting, like it. Blinkova, Muchova. I mean, Muchova's a really good player. We know Blinkova, though, still a very solid player herself. That's a definite Blockbuster match. I'm going to go for the Czech player to get through that Muchova. Christian and Bondar. I'm going to go for Christian. Krejcikova and Paulini both have buys. Harriet Dart and Clara Towson, very exciting matchup. I'm going to go for Clara Towson to get through that one, I think. Uchima and Shihan. Uchima was has been an interesting player this year. I'm intrigued to see how she gets on. Shihan will have the crowd behind her, but I'm not quite sure how. I'm not sure when that's going to be enough. We're going to go for the Japanese player. Lynette and Andreeva both have buys. Begu versus Ma Zhejian. I'll go for Begu. And then Golubic versus Wang Zhi. I'm going to go for Wang Zhi. Vekic and Kasakina both have buys. And Wang Miling is a wild card. Has lucky loser Yana Fett, who had a pretty good Hua Hin tournament in Thailand, to be honest. So I'm going to go for her. Tomjanovic to beat Osorio? Ooh, I don't know about that, actually. It's a pretty big call from me. I'm going to go for it. Tomjanovic. Pavlyuchenkova has a bye, as does Yastremska. Podoroska to beat Ren. And Rakimova, lucky loser versus Burrell qualifier. I'm going to go for Rakimova. Zheng and Ostapenko both have buys. Bektas, lucky loser versus Avanesian. Avanesian. Starodubtseva versus Siegmund. Siegmund had a really good run as well in Thailand and made the final there, so I'm going to go for her. Siniakova, Fernandez both have buys. Stearns to beat Monero and Gracheva to beat Baptiste, qualifier. Kanske and Kostyuk both have buys. Volinets, Galfi, qualifier, not an easy match for either. I'm going to go for Volinets. Osaka Bronzetti. Osaka for me. Potensaver and Bolter both have buys. And then Trevisan has Townsend. Ooh, battle of the lefties. Trevisan hasn't done a lot this year. She hasn't. Townsend, I think, has been the better player so far. So I'm going to go for Townsend. Dollarhide and Burrell. Dollarhide, Gauff and Navarro both have buys. Zhang Shui versus McCartney Kessler. I'm going to go for Zhang Shui. I'm going to go for it to get a win. Come on, Zhang. Greetmanen versus Erika Andreeva. I'm going to go for Andreeva. Potapova and Freck both have buys. Wang Jiang versus Alicia Parks qualifier. We're going to go for Alicia Parks qualifier. We interviewed her a couple of times at Wimbledon. She's got a big game. Just needs to get it to click and needs to find a run of form. She's got the ability. Sophia Kenin and Anna Bogdan. That's a really good first round. I think Kenin will get through it though. Schneider and Badosa both have buys. Serenko, Tomova, Serenko for me. Then Kalanina to beat Shramkova. Alexandrova and Kudermetova both have buys. Wang Jinyu versus Amanda and Nisamova. That's a good matchup. I like this one. But Nisamova for me. She did pick up an injury in her previous tournament. But I'm assuming she's going to be fit and healthy. Parry and Liang and Shu are going to go for Parry, and Pegula has a bye. Okay, here we go. Sabalenka to beat Diaz. Lulu, Sun, Ashlyn, Kruger. Kruger could beat her. Go for Lulu, though. Madison Keys and Srivas Tormo. Madison Keys. Helen Mayer to beat Rus. Samsonova and Zhao Jinjin. Samsonova. Mertens to beat Kochireto. Muchova to beat Wan Yu. Krejcikova to beat Christian. Paulini to beat Towson. Lynette to beat Ochima. Mirandreva to beat Begu. Vekic to beat Wang Jiyu. Yeah, I think that's okay. Kasakina Fet, Kasakina. Tomjanovic to beat Pavlyuchenkova, which would be an upset given that Pavlyuchenkova is seeded. By the way, great to see her back and seeded. She's really grafted this year. Yastremska and Podoroska. Yastremska. Zheng and Rakimova. Zheng. Look, I mean, she's going to be a big favorite, right? With the crowd behind her, she's going to be loving it. She's won a gold. The crowd are going to be so big on Zheng Qinwen. Ostapenko to beat Avanesian. Sigmund to beat Siniakova. Fernandez to beat Stearns. Kanenskaya to beat Gracheva. I'm going to go for a bit of an upset here and go for Volynets to beat Kostyuk. I'm going to go for Osaka to beat Potenseva as well. Townsend to beat Bolter. Gauff to beat Dollarhide. Navarro to beat Zhang Shui. Potapova to beat Andreeva, Erika Andreeva, that is. I'm going to go for Parks to beat Freck. Although Freck has won, she won a tournament recently. So no, actually, I'm going to go for Freck. She's in good form. Recency bias, eh? Sophia Kenin and Schneider also have been in really good form. Schneider. I'm going for Schneider. Seeded number 12. I mean, look, some of these women are making some big moves this year. It's great to see. Badosa to beat Sorenko, Alexandrova to beat Kalinina, and Nisimova Kudermetova. Wow, that's a great matchup. Really explosive. Going to go for Kudermetova mainly because I'm not 100% convinced on Anisimova and her fitness going into this tournament. Pegula to beat Parry. Saw Anisimova live at Wimbledon qualifying as well, and she was very good. Lost in the final round to Eva Lees, but talked to her as well. She's very articulate. I thought she spoke really well. And she knows that she should be playing at the top level and just needs to work her way back up there again. She's obviously had some really good runs since Wimbledon. Sabalenka Lulu-san. Sabalenka. Madison Keys, Hadamir, Madison Keys for me. Well, Hadamir has been in great form. Samsonova and Mertens Samsonova. Muchova Krachikova. Oh, Muchova Krachikova. That's going to be an exciting match, too. I'm going to go for Muchova. Muchova. Paulini to beat Lynette. Vekic to beat Andreeva. That'd be a good matchup as well. Kasatkina to beat Tomjanovic. Zheng Qinwen to beat Yastremska. Ostapenko to beat Sigmund. I'm going to go for Fernandez to frustrate and beat Kanenskaya. Osaka to beat Volynets. Gauff to beat Townsend. Navarro to beat Potapova. Schneider to beat Freck. Yeah. Badosa to beat Alexandrova. And Pegula to beat Kudermetova. Yeah. And Sabalenka Keys. I mean, Keys could cause the upset here. She could. There's a lot of question marks around how these players have recovered since the US Open and, how they're feeling. I think Sabalenka will get through. So there's Sabalenka. Muchova to beat Samsonova for me. Vekic. I'm going to go for Vekic to get revenge over Paolini from that Wimbledon loss and beat her. I'm going to go for Zhang Qinwen to beat Kasatkina. And I'm going to go for Ostapenko to beat Fernandez. Is that right or the left? I'm trying to think, actually. No, actually, I'm going to go for Fernandez. Osaka Gauff. Wow. I hope we get this for a round of 16 match. What a match that would be. Not sure whether Osaka can beat Gauff. Depends on the level. Let's go for it. Let's go big. I'm going for Osaka to beat Gauff. She's going to have a new coach in her corner. We're not sure exactly who it is yet, are we? So she's in limbo at the moment. She's in limbo at the moment in her coaching situation anyway. Navarro and Schneider. I'm going to go for Schneider to cause the upset. Then Badosa Pegula. I'm actually going to go for Badosa to beat Pegula here. I just got a feeling that loss in the US Open final, it would have taken a little bit out of her. I think she might need a bit of time to just really get to terms with it, recover. And then I don't think it'll be more than 1 or 2 tournaments. Then I think she'll be back to her best, or thereabouts anyway. I think Badosa's been really hungry this year. She's made some breakthrough. Well, she's had some breakthroughs at some tournaments, and I think it's time for her to kick on. And when the rest of the group, a lot of the top players are either absent or fatigued, I think it's a good time for her to push on, and it's a good opportunity. Quarterfinals I've got then are Sabalenka and Muchova. I'm actually going for Muchova to beat Sabalenka, cause the upset, like she did at Roland Garros. By the way, I really hope we see that because this matchup is phenomenal. It's such a good matchup on paper. We've got a massive hitter in Sabalenka, who's also, she's athletic. She can defend a bit as well. She's got the added, volley game and drop shot. But then you've got Muchova, who's so varied. It's a great matchup. It's almost similar to in style. I'm not saying they're just as good in terms of ability, but in terms of style, it is like a Serena versus Ash Barty type style comparison. And I mean, who would want to see that? So then we have the rematch, the Olympic final rematch between Vekic and Zheng. And of course, they also rematched at the US Open. And in both matches, Zheng came out on top. Both really thrilling matches, especially the US Open is a really, really good match. However, I don't think Vekic is going to be able to get the win over Zheng in China. I think she's going to have to wait to get a win over the Chinese player, at least in recent times anyway. And I think Zheng will come out on top. In terms of the quarterfinals, I'm going to go pretty big on Osaka. And you might be thinking, well, why are you going so big on Osaka? And it's not a think. I think it's more a feel. I feel that at some point she is going to make a big run. And surely it has to happen at some point, and we're going to see that level we saw against Swiatek, and she's going to run with it in a tournament, and maybe it could happen in Asia. So I'm going for Osaka to beat Fernandez, and I'm going to go for Badosa to beat an inform Diana Schneider, who's been very good recently. In terms of semi-finals, well, there's a few things here. Muchova and Zheng and Osaka and Badosa. So I've gone for some pretty surprising semi-finalists. I picked Muchova over Zheng in what would be an upset, I think. I think it's fair to say Zheng with the home crowd and given how she's been playing so well today as well to date, it just would be against the odds. But I have real faith in the way that Muchova has been playing. And, if it wasn't for her potentially getting tired, I would say, against Pegula to a degree, I think she probably would have got through that match. There was definitely an area of fatigue, but she's recovered. I think she's built up now some of that match fitness. I think she'll be fine in this tournament, and she's got a tough route, but I think she'll get through it. And I've also gone for Badosa to beat Osaka. I think the semi-final is probably just one step too far. I don't see her going on and making an incredible run to a final and even winning it right now, but I do see her making a run. And then in terms of the final, we've got Muchova versus Badosa, and I've gone for Karina Muchova to beat Badosa, and I just think she's got a little bit more experience, and I think her game is so varied. I think she'll frustrate Badosa. And look, for Badosa, it's been one of those years where she's had some breakthroughs, and I think it's time that she does start really stepping up and making those big waves. And I think she was clearly touted as a very promising junior player and hasn't quite hit the heights that were expected of her. You would hope that she will meet those types of expectations at some point. And I reckon this is a good time to really kick on even further than she has done this year. But I think she will be second best. I think Muchova, just with her variation and her aggressive game style, I think will put Badosa on the back foot. I think Badosa will struggle and does tend to struggle on the back foot and defensively when she's really up against it. I think she likes to be on the front foot, being the one that's the aggressor. And I don't think she'll have the chance against Muchova. Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe and well, and we'll see you on the next video.